Show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear. Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Thanks for joining us. Today is January 10th, 2018. It's 8 o'clock in the morning here on the West Coast. I really appreciate everybody who joins us. I don't have a guest today, and so you're going to listen to the things that I want to talk about, so I hope you appreciate it. If anybody wants to call in, please do. I'd love to have the conversation with one of our listeners. The number is 718-717-8106, and the lines are open. I'm pretty sure that I could get you on. I want to start the show, as I want to do often, with a bit of poetry by Lao Tzu, my favorite book that I love to read, Lao Tzu, The Way of Life, translated by Witter Bynner. It's number 9. Keep stretching a bow, you repent of the pull. A whetted saw gets thin and dull. Surrounded by treasure, you lie ill at ease. Proud beyond measure, you come to your knees. Do enough without vying. Be living, not dying. So I thought that was a pretty good poem for us to start our day, because people that listen to this show have to listen to some information about, I don't know, grim things, things that people would just rather move on. And in fact, people do move on. We get overwhelmed with just the cacophony of piled up. The technologists are just literally drowning our planet in pollution. And the governments seem to be patting them on the back and telling them congratulations, at least these days. And the greatest polluter on earth, the United States, is just rolling back all of its regulations. That is on a non-stop basis. I think I talked to you guys about this last week. Was the the 64 things that's already being turned back from the Trump administration. 64 things that he's actually really doing already. When people say it doesn't matter, it does matter who gets elected. And we kind of have to pick the best rotten apple. That's, people say, well, I'm just not going to participate. I can't help but disagree with that, because I think it is up to us. It does matter. We do have to participate, because we have to pick the best rotten apple. Right now we have pretty much a lunatic in the White House, and he just lets the military go wild. In fact, he abdicated his role as president of overseeing the military, so that now we're not really sure where our soldiers are. He has no idea where our soldiers are. I thought it was kind of ironic that the news media picked on the poor guy because he doesn't know the words to the Star-Spangled Banner. I mean, for real, did anybody expect Donald Trump to know oh my gosh, I called him Donald Trump, to know the Star-Spangled Banner? I didn't. I wasn't surprised. The guy's a freaking idiot. Anybody who attains his position just from being a rich kid has no capacity to really understand what it means to be an American. He's just rich. He doesn't consider me and you important at all. But I thought it would bring to us some news about things that are going on. There are stories here one's written on the New York Times page. Mr. Zinke's risky venture into deep water. This is kind of a quick opinion page. It's on the opinion page, thank goodness. It is an opinion by the editorial board of the New York Times. Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke proposes to open up vast areas of America's offshore drilling waters to oil drilling, much of them in the coastal waters that Barack Obama, for good reasons, ruled off limits. At the same time, Mr. Zinke proposes to roll back regulations for offshore drilling rigs put in place after the 2010 Deepwater blowout, an extraordinary act of corporate misconduct that not only fouled the Gulf of Mexico, but also eventually cost BP a tidy $61 billion in cleanup costs, federal penalties, and reparations to individuals and businesses, which they have yet to pay. Is there not something wrong with the picture? Much has been made of the damages of Mr. Zinke's orders will do to Mr. Obama's environmental legacy, already under attack throughout the Trump administration. They are also an assault to common sense. Thinking about the recklessness of expanding the possibilities for disaster while simultaneously weakening defenses against it dizzies the mind. In all pursuit of what Mr. Zinke and President Trump call energy dominance, a vaguely defined and, so far as crude oil is concerned, almost certainly unattainable goal. The administration's drilling ambitions were contained in an updated 5-year leasing plan covering the 2019 to 2024 required by President Trump in an executive order last April. The pushback has already begun. Governors all along the East Coast, including the Republicans, Rip Scott of Florida, Chris Christie of New Jersey, have said no thanks, do not despoil our coasts. Ditto for the Democratic governors of California, Oregon, and Washington. And actually, the news has come out that Trader Trump has actually taken Florida out of that because he lives there. He doesn't want his place all full. Although he doesn't quite realize it, but Turkey Point is still spewing untold amounts of nuclear pollution into the Florida Keys. So they have already highly toxic water. That pretty much leaves Alaska's politicians always on the hunt for new discoveries to replace North Slope reserves and refill the state treasury as the plan's main cheerleaders, although the ecological risks in the Arctic forbidding waters are greater than anywhere else because cleaning up just a minor oil spill could be difficult, if not impossible. And frankly, with the Arctic, with the reserves in Anwar being opened up from the tax bill, they've got plenty of money going on there. The proposed rollbacks of the safety rules governing offshore drilling are also no less revealing of this administration's fealty to the oil and gas industry. One rollback announced December 29th by the Interior Department's Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement, or BSEE-BC, would weaken the production safety rule. It has a 30-day comment period, which means we all have to go there and make a comment, folks. The other proposal, still in draft form, would revise well control rules that govern technologies like the blowout preventer that failed in the BP spill. Now that makes sense, doesn't it, guys? The rollbacks would not amount to a wholesale reversal of the Obama rules, but they would lighten industry's responsibilities and in doing so suggest a return to a more permissive regulatory era. Before the BP spill, offshore drilling was regulated by the Minerals Management Services, described in a 2008 report by the Inspector General at the time, Earl Devaney as hopelessly conflicted by its competing obligations to police the industry and also to grant leases and collect royalties. Kind of like the nuclear industry, like the NRC, is there to promote nuclear energy and protect the safety of human health. They kind of have to pick, and I think they picked. And it ain't us, folks. After the spill, Interior Secretary Ken Salazar broke the two agencies in two. One part to do the leasing and collect the money, and BSEE to enforce safety and other rules. He named a lawyer, Michael Bromwich, to run the enforcement arm, and ever since, the oil companies and the trade organizations like the American Petroleum Institute and the National Ocean Industries Association have complained about regulatory overkill. Now, having spent 8 years in exile, they have found someone who will listen to their complaints. The result? Weaker rules and a more compliant BSEE, which sees itself as a partner in encouraging offshore development and production, which was plainly not the reason the Bureau was created. The days of Bromwich are long gone. The man now running BSEE, Scott Angle, is an amiable Louisiana politician and a friend of the oil industry who called for an early end to the temporary drilling moratorium imposed after the Gulf spill. Mr. Bromwich sees a sea change in the Interior Department, a change that spells an enormous rollback of the balanced approach towards exploration the Obama administration tried to achieve. It could well end badly. Let's just suffice it to say, folks, that it is going to end badly. And hopefully we can get these traitors out of the White House. That's the goal. I'm taking to the streets on the next weekend. 2 weeks. How much longer do we have? A week from this weekend. That's going to be January 20th. They're calling it the Women's March, but I sort of resent that. It's not really, for me, the Women's March. For me, it's Impeach Trump Day, because he is a monster that needs to leave, in my view. He is nothing but a despicable character. I have nothing but horrible things to... I mean, he's just a greedy pig. Really, seriously, he has done nothing. They're trying to prop up coal and nuclear power plants, rolling back every single regulation. What did we read a few weeks ago? 64 regulations. It's beyond comprehension. So I went to Nuclear News, and as usual, they have an updated article that is actually pretty awesome. I like this website because they bring us news that we don't normally hear from anywhere else. You can't really quite find it anywhere else. There's a translated article by Cecil Asanuma Bryce, a researcher in urban technology, Franco-Japanese Institute, Tokyo. So I'm going to read a little bit. I don't think it's quite a long article. I don't think we'll have time to read the whole thing. But I would suggest that you go there to Nuclear News -net. I'm going to read it exactly what it says. Nuclear-news.net. Because as you scroll down, the article actually has some pretty interesting maps of the estimated total amounts of refugees and where they're dispersed as of February 17th. They talk about the refugees outside the prefecture. And there's also a pretty interesting map for those of us that are interested about the people being forced to go back into Fukushima. And the exclusionary zone is literally being shrunk as we speak. There's one restricted area as of 2017, but there's evacuation orders where the evacuation order was lifted and where preparation is being lifted. But essentially if you were to look at a map of the Fukushima prefecture, there was a wide-ranging area where people were not allowed to live. And now they're just saying, yeah, go back. No problem. 7 years. It's no big deal. It's been 7 long years. Of course it's safe. Forget the fact that your kids are getting cancer. Translated by Hervé Courtois and Kingsley Osborne. The explosion of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant on 11 March 2011 caused serious radioactive contamination that forced tens of thousands of people to flee their homes. Because this proves the impossibility of managing a nuclear accident, the refuge is not desired by the national authorities who opted for a nuclear managing of a nuclear accident. The refuge is not desired by the national authorities who opted for a nuclear action, nor by the international authorities. At first, the authorities provided aid and shelter. I think they mean refugee. The refugee is not desired by the national authorities who opted for a nuclear action, nor by the international authorities. At first, the authorities provided aid and shelter, but all aid was interrupted in April 2017 at the same time as the reopening of part of the former evacuation zone in order to force the migrants to return to life in the contaminated territories. We cannot finish counting the years of which we have too quickly called the after Fukushima. However we might wish it, as the after hours has not yet come. The situation has never stopped deteriorating. The insolvable problems are still too numerous on the nuclear plant site for one to evoke an after, which would suggest a resolved situation allowing for a new beginning. While information on the subject is scarce, attempts to respond to his self-appeasing desire under the approval of the international authorities in charge of the issue by propagating the magic formula of everything is fine. In fact, this is not the truth. Far from being under control, the management of this disaster resulting in the destruction of 40% of the prefecture's landscape continues its course, showing every day the human inability to contain the nuclear disaster. After so many years, the corium of reactor 1, 2, and 3 have still not been detected. The only information we have is that they are no longer in the tanks. Right, they blew up, folks. Hello. More than 800 tons of highly radioactive material has escaped from its confinement to penetrate the groundwater. Let that sink in. 800 tons of highly radioactive material. The position of the material cannot even be pinpointed precisely because of a high level of radioactivity preventing humans and even robots from approaching it. The coriums must be permanently cooled during all these years by more than 300 tons of water, which daily become contaminated in contact with the radioactive material. This highly contaminated water is in turn stored in tanks around the reactors, nearly 1 million cubic meters stored at present. Authorities regularly announce dumping some of the water in the sea because of its inability to store all the liquid. No solution has yet been found in this barrel of Dinades, subject to the human management and its mistakes. Thus, in December 2016, the injection of cooling water into the reactor 3 was suspended inadvertently. Can you imagine this, guys? This is just outrageous. So you like how they drop these bombs on us, which they say there's water regularly dumped into the sea because they can't. When was the last time any of us read a story that said they were dumping water regularly into the sea? I think I'll just continue reading a little bit more, but I'm not going to read this whole article. I'll need to read the next paragraph. It is not without surprise that we see the ardor of the international organizations as well as the Japanese government wanting to force home the people who fled in the aftermath of March 11, 2011 disaster, generating waves of migrants towards the south of the country, most generally towards the urbanized zones. More than 6 years after the explosion of the plant, and present more than ever in this rural territory, the members of the institutions engaged in the nuclear world, engaged in, quote, humanitarian work, unquote, in defense of peasants at risk, praising the benefits of resilience, pointing out that the suffering of becoming refugee and the health consequences of the stress in the face of disaster, while, however, at the same time displaying an agnostic attitude to the epidemiological results, now showing more than 184 children under 18 as having to be operated on for cancer of the thyroid out of the limited sample of 270,500 people. This point, taboo in political and scientific institutional circles, is nevertheless fundamental, because it is this assessment that determines the protection policies to be implemented, and not in the event of an accident. If the explosion of a nuclear power plant and the dispersion of the isotopes it contains are not dangerous for health and life as a whole, then why? Why leave the event of an explosion? Why evacuate the populations whose community life destroyed? Why spend so much money decontaminating? Why the need to create specific research centers on radio protection, since it would be useless to protect oneself from it? And finally, why use these same harmless isotopes to achieve the ultimate weapon of destruction that is brandished in the face of the world at every diplomatic tension? In short, we need to restore consistency in our discourse and analysis. If the inhabitants of Fukushima have taken refuge or have been evacuated, even if the evacuation is organized by the administration was very late, it is because there is a very real danger, which we all know, scientists, military, and citizens. Our critical position as an urbanist is to propose in this text an assessment of the migratory situation and measures developed for the control of population movements, especially through housing policies, but also through attempts to revive the local economy in Fukushima 6 years after the disaster. It's almost 7, let's be clear. Our analysis presents the results of studies carried out on the psychological effects of policies compelling residents to return to territories of the former evacuation zone where the situation is still unstable. And we question the motivations behind the political will to return populations to areas still contaminated. I am going to end there. This is quite a long article. I strongly suggest that anybody interested in this who wants an update on the plight of the Japanese people, please go here. Maybe I'll read this article on my YouTube channel. I tend to repeat stories that I've read here and read them on my YouTube channel because people, don't read. And they are curious about it, but they want to be spoon-fed. So let's go to our lovely current event notification reports. How about that for January 10th? There are some that are, at what point do we just stop being shocked? I mean, it's unconscionable, the lack of regard for life on this planet by the people in the nuclear industry and the technologists. As it is, we have people in Yemen dying all around the planet at the hands of the United States military and the United States technologists. I mean, we have people dying in our own country. We listened to Erica Dugan yesterday speak with us about her family's plight. They moved into their dream home, and now they're really literally just being harassed. Their doctor, told them to leave the state. Leave the state if you want to get your children the medical help they deserve, because they are not going to have it on the books that fracking causes problems. Not in the state of Oklahoma. Sorry. Not where there's no truth there. And it's sad because people expect us to be able to at least go to the doctor and have the doctors give us what we need instead of having your medical care. In fact, you want to hear something really weird? This was super weird. After the radio show yesterday ended, for some reason, I got a call from Erica's insurance company. How did that happen? That they got my phone number, called my cell phone, and started talking to me about being Erica, as if I was Erica. I had to stop the lady in mid-sentence and say, wait a minute, you're not talking to Erica Dugan. You're talking to Lonnie Clark. I have no idea how you got my phone number. She's like, oops, sorry, and hung up really quick. That was like the weirdest thing that's ever happened. So if people tell us that Erica Dugan is not being targeted by her insurance companies, I'm making it publicly known. I can guarantee you she is, because how in the world would her insurance company get my cell phone number? We don't even do this radio show from my cell phone number. We do it from a Skype number, which, by the way, if somebody wants to call, you can. The phone number is 718-717-8106. Give me a call and we can talk about any of these things that we're reading. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep on sharing information with you. But it sure would be good to hear from one of our listeners. That's another thing about this show, is it's kind of difficult to find out who's out there listening and who's not listening. I get feedback after the show ends that people have been listening. So I know there's people listening. And by the way, I strongly recommend that people make this coffee substitute drink in the morning. It's actually quite yummy. Take a teaspoon of turmeric, quarter teaspoon of black pepper, an ounce of coconut milk, 2 teaspoons of honey, hot water, stir it up. It looks the color of coffee, so you're psychologically drinking something sort of warm and brown. But it is so good for you, and it's super healthy, and it does actually help us stave off the effects of radioactivity. We know that for a fact. There's things that we can do to protect ourselves. We don't have to just go to the doctor and get their stupid kill you medicines, man. So, new event report from the NRC. Thank goodness they're still putting them on. Oh, before I read this, there's one other thing that people need to make a commentary on. People need to go to the Department of Labor and comment on their proposed rule change that would turn tips that you give the waitress to be owned by the restaurant that you're leaving the tip in. That is what Trader Trump is doing to the working class people of America. This is their proposal, that all the tips belong to the business owner because the tips were left to the business. So the tips no longer will belong to the person that you're leaving the tip to. That's their proposed idea, folks. That's how Trader Trump's Department of Labor wants to change our government. I don't know about you, but that, as a waitress, when I was a young woman, I waited tables for, a long time, probably 7, 8, 9 years. And that, I would have never done that. I would never have been a restaurant worker. I would never have been a waitress if my tips, my hard-earned tips, went to the boss. And then at the end of it, they get to say, who gets to have the tips? Okay, you. And let's be clear, this really opens up a whole window for sexual harassment, because the boss could say, hey, you've got to do me some favors if you want your tips, or you get fired if you report it. So if this is why I can do nothing but spit nails at these people. They are assaulting Americans. You know, this whole America first. He's not for America first. He's for Trump first. He is for rich people first. And let's be clear, rich people are not, they're not pro-Americans. Very few of them. If they were, they would have, be starting jobs acts. They aren't. They're finding it. They want their boats. They need to have their 2 islands. They need to have their big, gigantic 12 cars. Who needs 12 cars anyways? Who needs a whole litany of cars? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just so bourgeois that I just can't even imagine that. That just makes me spit nails. So let's go back to more spit and nails here. It's a current event notice report of January 10th by the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, Operation Center 19 through 110. There are 4 events. Massachusetts Institute of Tech. This is considered a non-power reactor event, non-emergency. This happened on 1/8. Notification date 1/9. Technical specification violation. On January 8th, 2 in-core experiments, in-core, I-N-C-O-R-E, experiments were removed from their in-core positions at a time when one of the 2 minimum required neutron flux level instruments was inoperable. This is in violation of technical specification number 3.2.3, specification number 2. The reactor was shut down for maintenance at the time of the event. So, gee, that makes you feel good, doesn't it? The next one, Curtiss-Wright Nuclear Division. Licensee, Curtiss-Wright Nuclear Division, defects and non-compliance on 1-9. Failure of under-voltage release mechanism. On October 17th, this date event happened on October 17th, and the notification date was 1-9. Oh, my God. No, they're going to tell us we're on a need-to-know basis. We didn't need to know until very recently. On October 17, 2017, Palisades alerted Curtiss-Wright of the failure of the undervoltage dropout mechanism in a molded case circuit breaker to trip the breaker in the undervoltage condition. The specific component was a Westinghouse-Eaton Cutler-Hamner PN, gives us the code name, undervoltage release mechanism. 6 of these components were supplied to Palisades in 1992. So this product has already been supplied. Findings indicated that the undervoltage release mechanism failure was a result of a misalignment of the solenoid due to excessive play in the design manufacturing process, which allowed the plunger to miss the target that would cause the breaker to trip in an undervoltage condition. Palisades identified this failure and mentioned 2 previous failures, one in 1996 and one in 2009. The undertrip mechanism was redesigned in 1997 and 1998 timeframe. The new design has not exhibited any reported failures. The observed failure of the 1992 breaker, having failed in the installed conditions, took 50 trials to repeat the failure. Given that the excessive play could result in a combined tolerances, worn tooling, as well as the design itself, and since the OEM has redesigned this mechanism almost 20 years ago, Curtiss-Wright would recommend end users to conduct their own evaluation to determine if a defect could create a substantial safety hazard exists. Oh, my God. I don't know about you, but I certainly wouldn't want to be living near the Palisades nuclear power facility. I mean, for real. This is them telling us that, oh, yeah, we think we have something that's not working right, but don't worry about it. God dang. Okay, let's move on. And nothing, if people don't go to this website to look at these nuclear alerts, nobody even knows it exists. I personally didn't know it existed before this radio show. I only found this because I was digging around for something to talk about when I started doing the radio show. And I began to realize, wait a minute, they're telling us, it's right here in writing, but are they going to advise us? No, they're going to have every single politician stand in front of a microphone and say, don't worry, no harm to human health, no problem. What's the sentence they always say at the end of every one of these? No problem. Okay, the next event happened on what date? Event was 1-9 at Farley, Alabama, power reactor. So don't worry about it. The current power is back up to 100% operation, even though they might have some kind of problem. It's an unanalyzed condition, but they're at 100%. So you can feel good about Farley in Alabama because, they're looking after us. On January 9th at 1759 CST, during a review of the NFPA 805 requirements and a circuit analysis, it was determined that the NFPA 805 analysis and fire safety shutdown modeling did not consider all fire-induced failures. As such, a condition could possibly exist during a postulated fire where both safety-related electrical trains could be impacted. This notification is to report a condition involving the fire safety shutdown analysis. The condition could result in an adverse impact on the ability of the operators to respond to a postulated fire in these areas. Therefore, the notification is being made pursuant to 10 CFR 50.72b, 3.2b. Any event or condition that resulted in nuclear power plant being in an unanalyzed condition that significantly degrades plant safety. Compensatory fire watches have been established in all areas, so don't worry about it. Folks are looking out for you. They're making sure they have another guy sitting there sipping his beer, making sure there's no more fires. Another event happened on 1/9. That was yesterday at the McClure reactor in North Carolina. Accident mitigation. Whoo, mitigation. So now we can feel good. During normal power operations at 100% power on Unit 2, both trains of containment of air return fans, I'm going to read that again. Both trains of, this is called containment air return fans. Both trains of containment air return fans, or CARFs, were declared inoperable in 1928 on January 9th due to a common issue with control power fuses, a common issue. The fuses potentially could not handle the inrush current with re-energizing the circuits. This condition resulted in a loss of reasonable expectation that the Unit 2 containment air return fans would meet their design safety function and mitigate an accident. This loss of safety function is reportable under blah, blah, blah. The site entered blah, blah, and blah, blah. They have all these technical things. When repairs to CF CARF were completed. 2A CARF repairs are complete. There is no significant impact on the health and safety of the public or the plant personnel. So don't you feel great about that? No problem. Certainly wouldn't want to live near any of these nuclear power facilities. Goodness gracious, man. This is what it's like to be super screwed, right? Let's go back to the 9th. Yeah, we have a little bit of time. Non-emergency, Texas State Department of Health and Services versus Integrity Group, Inc. is the licensee. Another lost Category 2 radiography exposure device. So they lost another device, and then they have an update. This happened on when? 12/29. Update from Art Tucker. The missing device has been found. Don't worry. It had 40.9 curies of iridium-192 source on the tailgate of the truck of the licensee's Beaumont location. Wow. The licensee left the radiographer left the licensee's location and headed to their work location. When they arrived at Groves, Texas, they realized they had not secured the device and pulled over. The device was not on the tailgate. The radiographer contacted the radiation safety officer and the search was begun. So what happens here is, do they tell us how they found it? No, they say the device has been found. Additional information will be provided in accordance with SA 300. Okay, let's see what he says. The following information was received via email on 12/29. So they reported this event. The notification date was 12/29. Okay, so this is an update. And why did it just show up on 1/9? That's odd. The event happened, the notification date happened on 12/29, but it's being reported on January 9th. Huh, because they don't want people to know that they lost their stuff. The agency received the following information on the event. The radiographers did not go to Grove, Texas, but only made it to Nederland, Texas, making the search area between 8 to 10 miles. At the time the device was recovered, approximately 40 people were searching for it on foot. The researchers included firefighters, emergency response personnel, and licensee personnel. Pictures of the device show the outer coating was scratched, but the device itself did not appear damaged. Additional information will be provided as it is received in accordance with SA 300. And there is really no other information on how it was found. Category 2 sources, if not managed or secured protectively, could cause permanent injury to the person who handles them and were otherwise in contact with them for a short period of time, minutes to hours. It could possibly be fatal to be close to this amount of unshielded radioactive material for a period of hours or days. These sources are typically used in particles such as industrial gamma radiography, high-dose rate brachytherapy, and medium dose rate brachytherapy. Wow. This is stunning, the level of complete disregard people have had for this. They just take it for granted. I guess these workers figure if they're going to get sick, you're going to get sick. I'm going to keep reading. I see that I read the first ones on the 5th, so I'm going to read the last few days. We have on January 8th, this event happened on 11/1, notification date 12/28. It's a non-emergency. Wisconsin Radiation Protection, Wheaton Franciscan Healthcare, Elmbrook Memorial. A hospital. You know what that means. They're about to kill somebody. Total dose delivered differed from the prescribed dose, greater than 20%. Yep, they're going to kill someone. On December 8th, the Wisconsin Department of Health and Services received a notice that the licensee identified a prostate manual brachytherapy procedure where the total dose delivered differed from the prescribed dose by 20% or more. The implant occurred in November 2017, and post-implant dosimetric analysis was performed on December 27th. The prescribed dose was 110 GY. The dose delivered to the treatment site was 56.5% of the intended dose. So, no mention of the human being involved. Chalk another one up to the million people that the AMA kills every year. How anybody could go into those hospitals is beyond me. I actually regret having gone to the hospital last summer. Okay, the next event happened on 12/29, and it was being reported on January 8th. Why is that? That is completely annoying. Texas Department of Health Services. Oh, they're going to be killing someone again. Non-emergency. Oh, lost Category 2 radiography exposure. Is this the same one where the guy pulled over in Beaumont? Yeah, that's the one we just read about. Okay. And then the next one reported on 1/8 was notification date 1/5, so it makes it to the report by 1/8. That's an interesting little bit of a lag. But the original event date happened on 11/22/2017. Interim evaluation of deviation at the Engine Systems, Inc., Rocky Mountain, North Carolina. Defect in thermostatic valve assemblies. I'm not going to read that whole thing, because we know that they're just lying. 2 thermostatic valve assemblies were supplied by Engine Systems, Inc., were found to have retaining straps, subcomponents of the internal thermostatic element detached from the correct position. For each valve assembly, one of the thermostatic elements, the centrally located element, contained this defect, the centrally located. The straps are used in conjunction with the spring to retain the element in a closed position. As the temperature of the sense fluid increases, a temperature-sensitive wax expands to open the element while acting against the spring. As the temperature of the fluid decreases, the wax contracts and the spring returns to the element in its closed position. Absence or failure of the straps will prevent proper operation of the element. So this is them, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to skip to the last paragraph. ESI's investigation revealed that this issue was induced by a test technician who, in an effort to minimize the amount of the test fluid remaining in the assembly after pressure testing, manually actuated the center thermostatic element, there are 9 total elements, to drain a small pocket of residual fluid. This effort to prevent the formation of oxidization had an unintended consequence and therefore resulted in a more serious issue. Doing, doing, doing. Though this is an isolated incident, it pertains to items supplied from ESI. The same model thermostatic valve assembly is used extensively on EDGs in the nuclear industry. Those customers that perform valve maintenance, including thermostatic element replacement, should be aware of the possibility of the straps becoming detached if care is not taken. I don't know, man. This makes me want to spit nails. Oh, here, our favorite nuclear power facility was down. So what date is this again? Let us remember. We haven't seen that it's come back up. So there's no notification date because we're going backwards. Oyster Creek, folks, at 70% power. Emergency declared at Oyster Creek. Unusual event. This happened on 1/6. And it's being reported on 1/8, and we have not had an update. Did you hear an update? Did we read an update? No. So this unusual event is still ongoing, emergency declared. Oyster Creek declared an unusual event, HU6 hazard event for an abnormal intake structure, a level less than equal to minus 3.0 MSL main sea level on points 23 and 24 in the main control room at 5:24 EST. The licensee notified the NRC resident inspector, state and local authorities. Update on 1/6 from James Ritchie to Bethany Serkey. Oyster Creek terminated unusual event HU6 hazardous event for abnormal intake structure level at the time of 23:08 on 1/6. The licensee notified the NRC resident inspector, state and authorities. Wow. So that means that the water level was too low. But don't worry, everybody living near Oyster Creek, you're safe. You're perfectly safe. It's perfectly okay. Keep going about your business. No problem. Oyster Creek, New Jersey. It's okay. Oh, Lord, another one here. Loss of COMM, loss commission, loss ASMT response. I think that's actuation. What is that? They'll tell us when we get into this. This is at Comanche Peak in Texas, non-emergency. They're at 100% operating power. Main steam line radiation monitor determined to be non-functional. At 11:26, main steam line radiation monitor 2RE2326. Reading was determined to be erratic and declared non-functional. With this radiation monitor non-functional, all the emergency action levels from a steam generator tube rupture in steam generator 2-02 could neither be evaluated nor monitored. This unplanned condition is reportable as a loss of assessment capability. Comanche Peak Nuclear Power Plant has the assurance of steam generator integrity and fuel cladding integrity, and there is negligible safety significance to the current condition from a public health and safety perspective. Don't worry about it, folks. Once again, the NRC is taking care of you. Additionally, compensatory measures are in place to assure adequate monitoring capabilities available to implement the CPNPP emergency plan in an unlikely event of the challenges to the steam generator or fuel cladding. The nitrogen-16 radiation monitor serves as a backup with an alarm function, and radiation protection technicians have been briefed on taking local readings with a Geiger-Mueller tube on the main steam line. Corrective actions are being pursued to restore 2RE2326 to functional status, and that is in Comanche Peak, Texas, folks. So let's hope none of you live near there, because it does not look good. And this is January 5th. Let's see. That's the same thing on the dose radiation level. That was the first time it was reported. Pilgrim in Massachusetts. Oh, man, I think we do know this. I wonder if it's been resolved. Pilgrim is at 0 power. RPS actuation, critical valid specification system actuation. This is considered a non-emergency. On January 4th, at 14:10 hours EST, with the reactor of approximately 100% power in steady state conditions, the winter storm across the Northeast caused a loss of offsite 345 kilovolt KV, I don't know what that means, line 342. Reactor power is reduced to approximately 81%, and a procedurally required manual reactor scram was initiated, all control rods fully inserted. As a result of the reactor scram, indicated reactor water level decreased as expected to less than plus 12 inches, resulting in automatic actuation of the primary containment isolation system for Group 2, primary containment isolation and reactor building isolation system of Group 4, reactor water cleanup system. Reactor water level was restored to the normal operating band. The primary containment isolation systems have been reset. The reactor pre-detection system signal has been reset. Following the reactor scram, a non-safety related control rod drive pump B tripped on low suction pressure. Control rod drive Pump A was replaced in service. All other services operated as expected in accordance with design. This event has no impact on health and the public or the safety of the public. So if I hear this right, the main steam isolation valves are open with decay being removed via steam to the main condenser. Open means they're spewing out radioactivity, right? That's what open means. No harm to human health, but they're spewing out radioactivity. Sorry about that, folks. Had to clear my throat. I honestly can't take this. There's one more day. This is super annoying. January 3rd. January 3rd, here we are. University of Missouri, Columbia, the type 10,000 kW tank, non-emergency, technical specifications for an abnormal occurrence. Power reactor at Comanche Peak. This was the first day that they advised us about the problem at Comanche Peak. So that's your nuclear update, folks. That's the interesting little thing. They're telling us. So here we go. I found this article in the Guardian. I think we have about 10 minutes left. Trump administration won't allow oil drilling off of the Florida coast. Oh, don't we love these selfish people? The Trump administration said Tuesday it would not allow oil drilling off the coast of Florida, abruptly reversing course under pressure from the state's Republican Senator Rick Scott. Rick Scott, by the way, is a criminal. Rick Scott is disgusting. He was a war criminal in Iraq, and I cannot help but say that every time I say his name, because people should not forget what he did. He is seriously a despicable character, as far as I'm concerned. There's several of these guys that are just despicable characters that are in the Republican Party. Okay, let's go back to this. Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke said after a brief meeting with Scott that drilling would be off the table when it comes to the waters of the eastern Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic Ocean off of Florida. So that's what's happened. I mean, I think most of you have heard about this, and I don't think you're actually really shocked about it. Is this really news that Trader Trump is going to protect his own Mar-a-Lago? I mean, do you think that he wants to have oil spills all over Mar-a-Lago and all over Florida? No, they don't. And they don't, it does make sense that they're going to remove the drilling from Louisiana, because anybody who knows the Louisiana Gulf knows that it's already a gigantic mess. It is not even, it's not even a train of thought that they can actually fix that, because they keep pouring Corexit still on there. So, I see that we have about 5 minutes left. I'm sort of not inclined to get involved in any of these articles that I have pulled up, because we only have 5 minutes left. So with that, I think I'm just going to talk a little bit about how is it that we as humanity are willing to take this? Why are we silent, folks? Why are we willing to just wake up in the morning, read these newspaper articles, listen to even this show where I go on about the NRC warning us that, don't worry, you're being poisoned, but we're telling you you're not being poisoned, so it's no harm to human health. Is anybody willing to understand that one? What's the psychology behind that? Guy McPherson's coming back on in the next few weeks, and we're going to be talking about more of his hypotheses that we don't have even 50 years to live on this planet. According to him, we are going to have a rapid decline because we are destroying our water at such an unprecedented rate that our water will not grow food. We'll die of dehydration and starvation. Incomprehensible as it sounds, but let's just take a look. This is the one thing I can do. Look at the mass animal deaths. If you guys think that we are any different than any of the other animals, think again, folks, because we're just like them. Updated list of worldwide die-offs, end times prophecy. Thank goodness for this lady. December 31st, hundreds of dead fish and a dolphin washed up in Cornwall, England. December 29th, 660,000 birds killed due to avian flu in Russia. December 27th, mass die-off of fish in Porto de Pedras, Brazil. So this is happening all around the world. And we're like, yeah, that's interesting. Frankly, this is partly why I'm going to be out in the street, because with Trader Trump and his bigoted racist ways, he's going after every single thing that Obama passed just because he hates Obama, just because he does not want to have a black man helping the world. He's, when his white supremacist little pea-brain mind, he thinks that black people can't possibly help the planet. So he's going to overturn every single thing he can. So I'm taking to the streets on January 20th, for sure. And I'm for sure going to be taken to the streets. And so are millions of Americans. And I would encourage everybody to take to the streets, because these elected officials that we have out there are not going to listen to much, but it might scare the daylights out of them if they saw 10 million people in the street on January 20th going, hell no, we won't go. We're not doing it. We're not taking it. I refuse to be a battered wife, and that's what America is acting like. So we have about 15 seconds. Put your courage feet on, you guys. Thank you for listening to us. We're going to have a pre-record on tomorrow. It'll be pretty interesting. Dr. Circus and Dr. Busby will be with us. And I'll be back with you guys on Monday. Take some action. Happiness is resistant. Take care, you guys.